Good luck, everyone. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. We're going to get started in just a minute at 11, but thanks for hopping on early. I see some attendees trickling in to the viewing room. You're at the Bay Area Air District's Community Investments Office Local Community Benefits Fund Tips and Tricks webinar. And we'll get started in just a few minutes, less than a minute here. Right at 11, we'll kick it off. All right, well, it's 11, so I'll go ahead and get us started as folks are trickling in. We'll just say welcome again. Thank you all so much for joining us today. You are here at the Bay Area Air District's Community Investments Office, Local Community Benefits Fund, Tips and Tricks webinar. So thanks again, and let's go ahead and start. My name is Mona Abood. I'm with InterEthnica. We're a consultant team that supports the Air District across various projects, including here with the Community Investments Office. Before we begin, I'm going to introduce the team if you all just want to wave so folks know who's who. My colleagues from InterEthnica supporting us today is Vanessa Zamora. She's going to walk through the application information form and share some helpful tips related to timeline and work planning while you're developing your grant. My colleague Deborah O will also demonstrate file naming and uploading documents and walking through some of the critical files. Our colleague Faith Hassan is also here, who is helping to support the webinar on behind the scenes and will be tracking questions. And most importantly, we're joined by Ms. Emmy Wang. She is the officer of the Bay Area Air District's Community Investment Office, who is leading this effort for the Air District. One quick note about today's session: when we say tips and tricks, what we really mean is that we're helping applicants navigate the application process and submission requirements. Think of it like knowing where to find materials, how to organize your documents, file naming conventions, and where and how to upload your materials when you're ready. We won't be providing one-to-one coaching or talking about how to write responses, but we'll help you understand what to expect in the application package and the materials so you know what to do to submit successfully. So thanks again for being here. If we can go to the next slide, please. Quick review of the Zoom tools we'll be using during the webinar today. Depending on your device, you should see a black Zoom menu bar at the bottom of your screen. There you'll find I want you to find the chat feature. We'll be asking you to sign in just a moment here. And the Q&A box. These are really the two very important tools we'll be using. You could submit your questions at any point throughout the webinar, and I hope that you submit them through the Q&A box and reserve the chat for other comments and if you need support. When we get to the Q&A, you will have the opportunity to raise your hand. And when you raise your hand, we'll provide the ability for you to unmute yourself and ask questions verbally as well. If we can go to the next slide, please, Vanessa, thank you. If you have any technical issues during the webinar, please don't worry. We're here for you. Faith is really here for you, I should say. You could do a couple of things. You could message Faith directly in the chat on Zoom. But if you're having trouble with Zoom, feel free to text the number on the screen. It's 415-340-1269, or email us at support@interethnica.com. That email is also on the screen, and Faith will help you out. Again, this is contact for the technical assistance related to this webinar. We will provide the contact information for the grant application technical assistance later on today. And yeah, it's just if you need help, we're here. Technology happens. Quickly going through participation principles. Thanks, Vanessa. Just a few quick notes. The webinar is recorded and it will be posted online on the Air District's website. So you will be able to go back and review the video and what we're doing together today. There is also an FAQ and Q&A available already on the Community Investments Office website. The FAQ has a lot of sort of the questions that are asked most often, and then the Q&A document has all of the questions asked so far. So feel free to look at those documents as well as you go through your application. We're updating them regularly. If questions come up during the presentation, like I mentioned earlier, submit them in the Q&A box. You don't need to wait until we get to Q&A. Feel free to submit them as they come in. And then finally, as with any virtual event, technology happens. Please be flexible. Let's be patient with one another. We're going to be sharing a lot of screens today. And so, let us know if you can't see anything, you need us to zoom in, or something is too blurry. We can go to the next slide. Okay, before we get into the presentation, I'd love for folks attending today to please sign in using the chat. Just share your name and organization so folks know who's in the room today. We'll give everyone just a moment to do that. So you'll want to locate the chat area here on Zoom and send a chat message to introduce yourself with your name and org. So we'll give folks just a few to do that. Let's see. I'm going to put a chat message in, and let's see if folks can then see the chat pop up. There we go. Thank you, Jordan. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I think we had to reopen the chat so folks can see it. I see Rachel, different folks from the Friends of Alhambra Creek. Nick, hello. Thanks for joining. Okay. Hi, Jody. So lots of folks signing in today. If we can go to the next slide. While you continue to do that, I'll quickly review our agenda. The agenda really is going to start with a brief overview of the grant opportunities and available funding, and then we'll walk through the application instructions. We're going to be referring to the application instructions a lot today. It's a really important document. Please familiarize yourself with it. And then we'll follow up with that with a walkthrough of some of the critical application materials, where to find them, how to name them, and what you need to include in them. We'll look at the file naming conventions, how to upload your files in the portal, and talk about important dates and sort of a sample timeline. As a friendly reminder, folks, it's a lot of information today. It's going to be a lot. We are sharing this as sort of a courtesy to walk through things, but it's also going to be recorded, and please ask questions. Towards the end of the session, we'll highlight some resources available to applicants, including that one-on-one technical assistance. And the last thing I'll say is, if you're looking for more individualized support, it is available through the EPN, and Vanessa will share that information today. All right. So Emmy will now give a overview of the program. It's meant to be brief. Additional details are available on the website, and there was an informational webinar for both communities where you can watch the recording. So with that, I'll pass it to you, Emmy. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mona. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see everyone virtually. My name is Emmy Wang. I'm the officer with the Air District's Community Investments Office, responsible for overseeing this grant. So I will provide a brief overview, but as mentioned, there was lots of information available on our website. And if you've been here before, this will be repetition, but good to get it again. So let's see. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit of background on how we got here and where the funding originates from. The Air District collects penalties from entities that violate our air quality regulations. So back in May of 2024, the Air District adopted the Community Benefits Penalty Funds policy to direct resources back to the communities where air quality violations occurred. In addition, some facilities also commit to providing mitigation funds to improve air quality in communities. To date, the Air District has generated over $124 million in penalty and mitigation funds to be reinvested back into impacted communities. Next slide, please. Penalty funds and other funds from enforcement actions are administered through what we're now calling the Bay Repair Program. So reinvesting penalties for air improvement and resilience. Funds are allocated according to a funding formula. So after meeting a predetermined threshold and split for specific penalty amounts, 80% of funds are allocated to the local community benefits fund, and then 20% are allocated to the regional community benefits fund. Next slide, please. We are here today talking about the local community benefits fund for Benicia and surrounding communities and Richmond and surrounding communities, as that is the largest share of funding that we have available to date. So here you can see the goal of the local community benefits fund is to reinvest in the specific communities affected by the air quality violations that led to the penalty. We've outlined kind of three sub goals for the program itself. So the first is programmatic. It is to reduce air pollution or mitigate air pollution impacts, improve public health outcomes, and build economic resilience for a just transition away from the harmful effects of a fossil fuel-based economy. Two is around what kinds of projects we're looking to see, which is to advance integrated projects to holistically meet community needs. And the third is a little bit around the how, which is to strengthen community-led and collaborative solutions. Okay, next slide, please. And then here we'll go over what kind of funding is available and for what communities. So in October 2024, the Air District, in conjunction with the California Air Resources Board, fined Valero Refining Company for air quality violations. Therefore, the local community benefits fund for Benicia and surrounding communities has approximately $60 million total available. Here you can see a table that outlines the different kinds of grant types that are available through the local community benefits fund. We've divided the program into different grant types to allow more flexibility for different kinds of projects at different scales. So at a glance, the seed grant is the smallest grant type, with grants of between $100,000 to $200,000, open only to 501(c)(3) nonprofit organizations with no co-applicant, so a solo application. And we expect to award between 1 to 5 grant awards in this category. And the seed grant is open to all eligible communities within Benicia and then within the surrounding communities. If you're interested in identifying the surrounding communities, you can find that on the Community Investments Office website where we have an interactive map where you can input your address. In the middle, we have what's called the Opportunity Grant, which ranges between 500,000 and 5 million. In this case, the lead applicant must partner with at least one co-applicant. The grant type is available to Benicia and surrounding communities, and we anticipate awarding between 1 to 5 grant awards. And then lastly, on the far right, we have the Catalyst Grant, which are quite large. They are between $10 to $40 million. We made an exemption in relation to the Valero refinery closing. So for this case, the Catalyst Grant in the Benicia area, Benicia City of Benicia boundaries, does not require a co-applicant. And we anticipate awarding between 1 to 3 grant awards. Okay, next slide, please. And then here you can find the similar details for the Richmond and surrounding communities area. So in the Richmond community, we have approximately $35 million, over $35 million available. And all grant types are eligible to communities within the eligible boundaries, which is within the Path to Clean Air Community Emission Reductions Plan area. Again, additional details can be found on the Call projects and the interactive mapping platform we have on the website. So roughly similar to what I shared for Benicia in the seed grant category. Those are the smallest grants between $100,000 to $200,000, open to 501(c)(3) nonprofit applications, and we anticipate awarding 1 to 5 grants. The Opportunity Grant is between $500,000 to $5 million. The lead applicant must partner with at least one co-applicant, and we anticipate awarding between 1 to 5 grant awards. And then the Catalyst Grant ranges between $10 to $15 million for the Richmond and surrounding community areas, where the lead applicant must partner with multiple co-applicants, and we anticipate awarding between 1 to 3 grants. Okay, so that's the quick overview of kind of the most basic nuts and bolts of the grant and the grant priorities and goals. But a lot more information can be found again on the website. We had a grant info session webinar recording that you can link back to. And of course, the grant guidelines are, underlying the architecture for this program. So with that, I will turn it over to Vanessa to begin walking through the application process.
Thank you so much, Emmy. So I'll walk you all through how to find the application materials. Emmy has mentioned a few times that all information can be found in the Community Investments website. So I will switch screen share. So bear with us as we switch over to a different screen share screen. And I'll walk you through how to find all of this information. Okay, please let me know if this is blurry in any way or if you have trouble. Let Faith know and we can adjust. This is the Community Investments website. This is the home screen that you will see when you go directly to the Community Investments Office website. And all information about your grant is available here. So I would scroll down and you can find round one guidelines with extensive details about eligibility, examples, everything that you'll need to submit your application. You can find location-specific details for Benicia and surrounding communities, Richmond surrounding communities, and the call for projects. And where I will be directing to is the application instructions document. You can also find fact sheets, the eligible communities map that Emmy mentioned. It's interactive. You can enter your address and make sure you're eligible. And past recordings, past events, and materials can also be found here. Again, I will direct your attention to the application instructions document. When you select this document, it is where largely we will be focused today. It will have almost all information that we will be referencing today, but I want to focus on the application information form. This is the very first step that applicants need to do before they submit their overall application. So when you select that link, you will be directed to the application information form. This is the same form for both applications. So for both Benicia and surrounding communities and Richmond and surrounding communities, it is the same link. When you're going through this application, you will need to complete this, one per application that you will be submitting. And this is a very important first step because completing this will generate a unique application ID that you will need to rename all of your files, and will also give you an upload link to submit all files for your application. Again, you will need to submit one of these application information forms per application that your entity will be submitting. And this also only needs to be done by the lead applicant. So I'm going to go over here. I started filling this out. The first, when you click next, it will ask you for an application title. I've started filling this in to help us with timing, but you will need a short title to identify your application, 3 words or less. In this case, I've chosen from a sample that you have access to. I've selected urban greening. We'll go next. And you will need fairly standard information when filling out this form. In the first page, you'll need lead applicant entity name, lead applicant entity type, the mailing address, the point of contact. The point of contact will be receiving the email with the unique identifier, unique identification number, and will also receive that upload link portal. The job title, contact email, and contact phone number. Now, the final page in this application information form does get to a little bit more detail, so the person filling this out should have access to this information. So are you applying for Benicia and surrounding communities, or within Richmond and surrounding communities? In this case, I've selected Benicia and surrounding communities. The grant type, Emmy has mentioned a short description of all 3. In this case, I've selected Catalyst Grant. Grant term requested, and a short application summary. This should be about a sentence, not very long, but a small summary of your application. Then you will be able to select your primary issue and secondary issue. This will select what your application will address, and if there's something that is not listed here, go ahead and select other, and then you can type in description. 5 words or less for that description. Then you will select submit. Once you have selected submit, the point of contact who you've included that information for will receive a confirmation email. That confirmation email will look something like this. I will zoom in a bit so that you can take a look. The subject line will read application received and an application ID number. It is important to note that application received means that they have received your application information form, does not mean that they have received your full application package. So if you refer back to this email, it just means that they've received your application information form and you have all the information you need to submit your application. In the body of the email, you'll be reminded that you have your unique application number, which is listed here. In this case, it's 26 LCB 15, and that is what I will use when naming my application. It will give you an example of the file naming format that you will use for your application, which we will walk through later in this webinar. And it will give you a link to a application portal to upload your materials. So you will click this once you are ready to submit, and that will be where you will submit all of your application files. It reminds you of the application deadlines, which we'll refer to a few times throughout this webinar. May 1st is for the Benicia Catalyst Grant. That is when the application is due. And then all other applications for both Benicia and Richmond and surrounding communities, all applications are due May 29th at 5 p.m. Again, excluding the Benicia Catalyst Grant. I will go back to screen sharing the full presentation. And with that, I will hand it over to Mona, who will walk through the next portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'm gonna go, can we go back to the deck? Sorry. I was answering a question and didn't have it fully up. So I'm going to talk through how do you know what you need to complete for the application? So if you can go to the next slide, Vanessa. As an applicant, once you've gone through those first steps that Vanessa just walked through, you have completed the application information form online, and you've received your email with that unique application number and link to the portal. Now it's time to start the actual preparation of the materials for your application package. So here you'll need to identify what documents you need to complete and upload for your specific entity type and application. And that's sort of where the bulk of the work begins. You'll need to download all of those required documents and templates, rename the files using the required naming conventions, prepare the documents, confirm they're named correctly, and then upload them. So naturally, to do that, you'll need to know which documents that you will need. That's where we're going to go over. I'm going to show again the application instructions form, because that is where you're going to go to find out which documents you need. So I'm going to share my screen and go back to that form that Vanessa had shared earlier. In the application instructions form, identifying which documents you need to complete will be on page 3 in a table. But if you scroll down to page 2, there's some information about the application package here that I just want to highlight. So a complete application package consists of the documents outlined below, and the required application documents have been updated in this application instructions form after the grant guidelines. So the table here supersedes what was required and listed in the grant guidelines. You want to make sure that you name everything correctly, because incorrect name files may not be uploaded and the Air District can't receive them or accept them. And optional documents beyond what's outlined below will not be reviewed. Okay, so here's that table on page 3. In this table, you have all of the documents listed 1 through 11, and then it talks through, is it a seed grant requirement or an opportunity and catalyst grant requirement? In this document, these are linked where you can find templates or examples. So you'll want to click on these links and download them. And then the file naming convention is specific to whether you're a seed or opportunity and catalyst grant. So Deborah will talk about file naming in a bit, but just to give a quick highlight, for some things like project narratives, outcomes plans, and budgets, seed grants will name geography, application number, and project narrative. So that would say Benicia, for example, and then your unique application ID that Vanessa just showed you how to get, and then project narrative. But if you're opportunity or catalyst grant, it's slightly different. You need to include your project title in there. Okay. So this is a document where you will find all of the links and gather those materials. So how do you know which one you need to complete? This will be in the deck shared. You'll have access to this deck after the webinar. And so I've created this table to help sort of wrap our heads around what is it that I need to do based on my application, and how many of them do I need to do, because it's slightly different, right? So for a seed grant, I'm starting at number 1 here, the application summary, you don't need to worry about. However, for opportunity and catalyst grants, you would submit one application summary for your whole application. So if your application has 1 project or 12 projects, you would submit one application summary. It's the same thing for the overall narrative. The overall narrative does not apply to the seed grant. You don't need to worry about those if you're applying for a seed grant. But for the opportunity and catalyst grants, you will submit one overall narrative. Again, doesn't matter how many projects are within your application. For your application, you submit one narrative. Okay. Project narratives are different. So the project narratives for the seed grant, because you're submitting on one project within the seed grant, you submit one project narrative. And for the opportunity and catalyst grants, you submit one project narrative for each project included in your application. So if you have 2 projects included, you submit 2 unique project narratives for each of those projects. It's the same thing for the measurable outcomes plans and the budgets. So for a seed grant, because you're only submitting for one project, you do one measurable outcomes plan. And then for opportunity and catalyst grants, it's one outcomes plan per project. Budgets work the same way. All right, so these 1 through 5 listed here are really what we're thinking of as the critical items you need to include that describe your application and your project narrative, your outcomes plan, and your budget. So we'll look at those in more detail. But to summarize those ones really quickly again, for seed grants, you don't need to worry about the summary or the narrative. You start at number 3 with your project narrative, your measurable outcomes plan, and your budget. For opportunity or catalyst grant, one application summary and one overall narrative, and then one of each of your project summary, outcomes plan, and budgets for each of the projects in which you're submitting on. Okay. I'm going to go through numbers 6 through 11. We're not going to look at these in detail all together, but what I want to highlight through 6, 7, and 8 is depending on the type of applicant you are, who you are in your organization, and what your project is you're submitting, I really recommend you download these documents early that have instructions and read the grant guidelines, and you identify who at your organization may need to complete that because they sometimes ask for different things. For financial management, you will need one for each application you're submitting. So if you're a seed grant, opportunity grant, or catalyst grant, you do submit one. For number 7, the annual organizational budgets, this is for lead and co-applicants. For the seed grant, you need one from the lead applicant. And for the opportunity and catalyst grant, it's a little bit different. You do need one for each of the lead and co-applicants if that lead or co-applicant is a nonprofit or a for-profit with a fiscal sponsor, or I should say including those with a fiscal sponsor. The additional financial documentation, this can be financial statements, IRS 501Cs, determination letters, Form 990s, audits. I really suggest you look at the grant guidelines in detail and determine what documents are required for your specific organization type. And then once you identify that, who at your organization can help fill out those documents, and maybe think about that in your timeline planning. The additional documentation is really about the project. It's less about who you are as an organization, but it's the project you're proposing in your application. And these are only needed if relevant. For example, if you are proposing a project where you will acquire a site, additional documentation might need to show that you're eligible to acquire that site. Everybody does need to complete references regardless of application type. The reference document that you'll download is a form that you'll fill out, so it's a template. You'll need 2 references that can speak to the lead applicant's ability and capacity to complete the work outlined in the application. So for a seed applicant, you submit one for the lead applicant. For the opportunity and catalyst grants, you just submit one for the lead applicant. We don't need references for the co-applicants. And then the agreement to terms is also a form that you fill out, and you'll just need one for each of the lead applicants. You don't need to submit for co-applicants if you have any. Okay, so this is a overview of the types of documents that may be required and sort of how to find which ones are relevant to your specific application, entity type, or project type. Again, you can find the links to these documents in the application summary. So I'm going to have Deborah now walk you through numbers 1 through 4, and then we'll come back and talk about budgets.
Awesome. Thanks, Mona. I'm sharing my entire screen. Yeah, I'm going to go over the application instruction files so you have a better idea of what materials you're going to have to gather, and call out some things to remember because there are some very specific requirements. Like Mona mentioned, if you click on each of these links, we've provided Word and Excel templates. It's super important that you use these exact templates. And then right next to it is the file naming conventions that will be used. So the first thing I did was download all these files and just put it into a folder for easy access. But if you have a look, one thing you can notice is that the downloaded templates do not follow the naming conventions. So we're going to have to rename each file as we fill them out. So I'm going to start with the application summary, which these first 2 documents, application summary and overall narrative, are only required for opportunity and catalyst applicants. So let's open up that application summary document. It's an Excel file. Opening up this first tab.
Sorry, Deborah, we're not seeing your screen, or are we? There it is. Sorry. Okay, apologies.
Okay. So in this first tab, it asks for your application title. So remembering that title that you submitted with your application information form, putting that in there, and then filling out the contact information for all your lead and co-applicants, and really making sure that as you go through these files, it's really important that you fill out and answer every question. So please remember to scroll up and down, scroll to the side, and then check every tab so that you're not missing anything. So after you fill out the contact information, I go to that second tab, and then it asks for the project title and summary. And I just want to emphasize that the project title is different from the application title. The application title is what you submitted for the application information form for the overarching application. And within that, you might be submitting multiple projects. So there will be a different project title and summary for each of those. So once you fill this out, you are going to save it as an Excel file. So just click save, and it's super important, like we mentioned, to follow the file naming convention. So I'm going to go to that email that I received, and that email has my unique application number, which for me it's Benicia 26 LCCB. LCB3. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back here, paste, and this is called application summary. So application space summary. And I'm going to save it as. So once again, just really being very specific and particular to make sure that you are using that file naming convention, which is geography underscore application number underscore application summary. So after that, we're going to move on to the overall narrative. So let me get that file up. So this is a Word document. Again, this is only for Opportunity and Catalyst grants applicants. The section is scored out of 50 points. Please don't delete the instructions or the questions in this template. This section has a 7-page limit, and we encourage you to keep it concise. And the 7 pages does include the instructions and questions in the beginning. So please don't delete anything. Don't change the formatting. Don't change the font sizes and trying to get more things to fit. Try to keep the template as it is, as it's provided. And then we're going to save it as a PDF before we submit. Also, please don't include any links to external websites, as those won't be reviewed. So first, fill out this application information in this table, and then moving on to this proposal vision, a short summary that outlines your overall application and projects and how your application will support the program goals. We're asking you to write your proposal response immediately below each question that you're responding to, so it's really clear that this is the question and this is the answer right underneath. It's also really important that you answer every single question, and if a question is not applicable, you can write NA and briefly explain why. So questions 3 to 6 are around partnership structure amongst the lead applicant and co-applicants. So basically how you'll work together. And if you're a Catalyst grant applicant in Benicia, co-applicants are not required. So you can write NA for this section. Questions 7 and 8 are about the lead applicant's capacity to oversee implementation. And then as you fill out this narrative, it can be really helpful to revisit the scoring criteria. I'm going to open that up. It's in the scoring criteria is on page 21 of the round 1 guidelines on that Community Investments Office website that Vanessa went over. And you can cross-reference how your narrative will be scored. So you're making sure to hit every single point, and you can look at how many points each of that section will be worth. So once you're done answering all the questions for that overall narrative, for all Word documents, we're asking you to save them as PDFs for all Word document templates. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. I'm going to click PDF. And once again, I have to really make sure I'm filling out the naming convention correctly. So I'm going to copy and paste my geography and application number in, oops, I don't know where that went. And this is the overall narrative. And I'm going to click save as PDF. So yeah, once again, really cross-referencing what the naming convention is. Okay, and moving on to the project narrative file. Let me open that one up. So once this file is applicable to all grant applicants, and this is where your application will be scored. It's out of 100 points. So once again, super helpful to cross-reference that scoring criteria in the application guidelines. Once again, please don't delete instructions and questions. Keep the formatted limited. And there is a page limit of 15 pages. And once again, we encourage you to keep it shorter if possible. And links to external websites will not be reviewed. So we start with this table and the application title, the lead applicant name, project location, overall funding request, grant term request. And so for seed applicants, fill out this top section. For opportunity and catalyst grant applicants only, fill out the second section as well, because you will have multiple projects. For seed grant applicants, your application is your project, so you don't have to fill out that second part. And then for opportunity and catalyst applicants, you'll be creating a separate project narrative for each project in the application and saving them as separate files. And each one can have this 15-page limit. So kind of scrolling down, going into each of the sections of the project narrative. And the first section is strategy alignment. So provide a brief summary that outlines the project. Explain how it aligns with, so that's question one. The second one, explain how it aligns with the local community benefit fund strategies. The second section out of 20 points is around community impact, the location of your project, how community needs were identified, and how the project addresses these needs. This next section is around how you will be engaging community. And then the measurable outcomes plan. For question 7, describe the main components of the project. For question 8, you won't be filling this out. You will be filling out the measurable outcomes template that I will review shortly right after this. And then for question 9, you will be using a budget template to provide specifics around your budget, but we're asking you that right underneath here in question 9 to provide a written summary of the overall budget and cost. Next, we're asking you for ecosystem alignment. Describe how the project aligns with any existing initiatives or plans. And then capacity, describe the project lead's past experiences with similar projects and the plan for managing personnel and resources. And then this last section for readiness. So projects must be ready to start by the time the grant agreement is signed. So this section is about describing any permits, approvals, SECA compliance required for project implementation and the status of these documents. As part of the application process, we'll be asking you to upload these documents as well, but in the narrative section to explain what these documents are. So once I'm finished with this section, I'm going to once again save as PDF. And if you look at the application instructions over here, project narrative, I just want to point out that the naming convention is a little bit different for seed grant applicants and opportunity and catalyst grant applicants. For seed applicants, since you'll be submitting just one project narrative, you can name it geography underscore application number or underscore project narrative. For opportunity and catalyst applicants, since there will be multiple project narratives, you would also be adding the project title to the name. So moving on to the measurable outcomes plan. This is the Word document template that we've provided for the measurable outcomes plan. Once again, it's 2-page or multiple pages, so making sure to scroll and look at all sections. We've provided a chart, so please Adjust as you need, so delete or add rows as necessary. We've also provided a guide and a sample. So this is the guide, and this is the guide, and this is a sample of it filled out. That you can use as a reference. So the measurable outcomes plan should answer what specific result or change will occur because of this project. How will you know what change is happening? What work will you do to make that change possible? And how do the requested funds support that work? It's one of the key parts of the scoring process, and it's a roadmap for tracking your progress. And all measurable outcomes should support the program goals. If you look at this example plan, each measurable outcome should list 1 to 3 indicators, and those indicators should be clearly linked to that outcome, realistic for your team to track, and measurable during this grant period. Moving on to that second part of the table, those same outcomes are going to be used to fill out the milestones table, which shows how your work will lead to your outcomes, including the tasks that lead to each milestone, and then give an estimated completion date as well. I won't get too into the specific details around this, but this outcomes guide and the example are great places to start to get an idea of how to fill this out. And then you can also reach out to technical assistance for any support needs around identifying measurable outcomes. So that was kind of an overview of the first 4 documents as part of the application package. And I'm going to hand it over to Mona to describe the budget component.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. I'm gonna go back to the application instructions. Big theme here to keep going back to these instructions. Scrolling down to that page 3 table. And what you'll see here for the budgets component, there are 2 files linked. So there's the budget itself. This is the document you will fill out and submit. For a seed grant, you'll submit one, and then for your opportunity and catalyst grants, you'll download and submit one for each of your projects. And then there's a sample budget. Or an example budget. And so we'll look at that together. The example budget provides an overview of what it might look like to have your completed budget filled out. It also gives good examples of how to maybe organize or categorize some of your costs. And then the budget document itself has instructions. Okay, quick review of the file naming here. For seed grants, it's geography underscore your unique application ID underscore budget. And then for your opportunity and catalyst grants, it's slightly different, geography underscore application ID underscore project title underscore budget. All right. So I'm going to share the example budget first, and then we'll look at the template budget with the instructions. So as I open the example budget, Excel sometimes brings you to different places in the file. So depending on maybe your Excel version or nothing you've done wrong, maybe has a mind of its own. So I just want to say when you're opening an Excel file from the templates you're downloading, always make sure you're starting at the first spot. So how do you do that? For me, I just scroll to the top and make sure I'm all the way to the left. And then at the bottom, there are various sheets included. You know that because this is kind of grayed out here, and then there's arrows. So just click all the way to the left until you can't click anymore. And this is the beginning of the document, the project summary. So this is filled out and already populated. I'll zoom in. I know it's hard to see, but the project summary in your budget, please don't edit. This is already designed with formulas that will auto-populate all of these amounts for each lead and co-applicant, as well as the direct, total, and indirect cost. So in this summary page, you don't need to fill anything out. And then each lead and co-applicant will have different tabs. So for a seed grant, you only need to worry about this tab, this sheet, that's for the lead applicant. And then for the opportunity and catalyst grants, you'll go down your co-applicant list. Completed.
Mona, if I could pause you for a second. Your screen is kind of split screening a little funny. I don't know if I
Okay,
can
let
see
me
that as
stop and reshare. Thank you. Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and let me know if that happens again. I know we're doing a lot of this screen sharing. I'll go back to the project summary in case you didn't see it. So the project summary, again, we don't want to edit. It auto populates based on what you fill out in the other sheets. So it'll summarize for the lead applicant and all of the co-applicants, not only the total cost, but it'll break it down by type of cost. And then it also shows the indirect cap percentage and how close you are to that percentage. So it's a great sort of place to come back and check and see if you need to adjust your budgets. Moving on to the sheet for the lead applicant. For seed applicants, only need to fill out the lead applicant sheet. For Opportunity and Catalyst, go all the way down your co-applicant list. And so here you'll put the project name, the lead applicant name. So here, this is an example, City Clean Air Home Cityville. The lead applicant name is North Cityville CBO, and the grant term request.
Sorry, Mona, it's happening again.
Oh no, do you have this document? Do you want to share and I could talk you through it?
Yeah, give me
Sorry.
1 sec.
Sorry, folks. We have some screen share inabilities, unfortunately.
Want me to get back to it?
I could also potentially save it as a PDF, but the capabilities won't work as well. We're in the example budget, if it's helpful, Vanessa.
Yes. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Just opening that. Okay.
Okay, great. So you'll go all the way back to the beginning. So Vanessa's opened in an interesting spot as well. If we can go to the second sheet, or I guess this is the example budget. Yeah. Can you go to the lead applicant, back to the lead applicant? You're in the right document. You just needed to go to the earlier tab. Thank you. Yeah. So in the lead applicant, this is what it looks like when it is fully filled out for this example project. So you'll see a cost category all the way to the left. There's a drop down for you to pick your cost category. Then there's the cost type. There's also a drop down there where you'll pick the cost type. The cost item in column C, you can think of that as like the name of the cost, the short title. And then you'll describe the cost in column D and enter the dollar amount in column E. Once you do all of that, this project summary auto calculates on the right. So in columns E, F, and G, it's sort of that shaded blue and shaded gray. This automatically calculates based on what you've put in the other columns. And then Vanessa, if you can scroll down, so you don't want to edit that project summary, just let it calculate. If you need more lines, please add them above this, what's here, it's row 26. So you'll want to insert lines above that row so that it continues to auto calculate. If you submit lines below that row, it won't calculate and the budget will not be correct in what you submit. Okay, so you can, highlight a row and click insert and it would go up. So you want to highlight the whole row, Vanessa. And then, right click, insert, and now you're adding rows. And you could add as many rows as you need to complete your budget above this, only add lines above this line. Scrolling down, there is a place to add other sources of project funding. This is where you would add additional funding that you're not requesting in your application, but you're saying we have additional funding that supports this work. So for example, in this project, they're listing other sources of funding as the other sources, the Cal EPA, and the description and status of that is that it's a state environmental justice grant. It's already secured. And then the amount of that. Again, if you need to add more lines here, feel free to do so. This part is not required, only if you have additional funding. Okay, Vanessa, if you can click on the next sheet that says co-applicant 1. Okay, so you'll see co-applicant 1, all the co-applicant sheets look the same. They're the same template. You'll just fill out the budget for that co-applicant following the same process. The only difference you'll notice is that you'll want to make sure you use the same project name, but put the co-applicant name, right? And then whatever those costs are for that applicant. Okay. This is what it looks like as an example. I do recommend looking at the example budget because you can see what would be acceptable as a direct cost versus an indirect cost, a contingency, and things like that. All right. So we're going to look at the actual budget sheet now. This is what you'll fill out. Vanessa, if you can share the actual budget. It's called the template budget document. And that template budget document starts with instructions. And so we've started with sort of what it would look like when it's done, but there are detailed instructions in that document for you to follow. And as you follow those instructions, it'll help break down, where and how you might want to put things. So again, Vanessa's document's not opening on the first page. You want to scroll all the way to the left, keep going to the very first sheet. It should say, there we go, application instructions. So there's some general guidance there. Part 2, completing the applicant tabs. I want to highlight a couple of things. First, if you have more than 5 co-applicants, please reach out to the Air District and we'll get you an Excel file with all of the applicant sheets that you need. So please don't add additional applicant sheets if you have more than 6 co-applicants. Just reach out to the Air District Community Investments at baqmd.gov and they'll create a custom template for you with the correct number of co-applicants. And when you're completing the applicant tabs, don't edit any of the formulas within the cells. Leave the formulas there, let it do the work for you. You'll want to use the drop downs. That's how it auto calculates how much of each piece of the budget is for direct costs versus indirect costs versus contingency, et cetera. And then in the summary budget, it gives you that percentage. So you have drop downs for the cost category and the cost type. Again, that cost item is just describing that expense in a few words. And then the description, you can review the cost description category tab and it has detailed instructions on how to do that. And then enter the costs in whole dollars. Couple of other reminders, this is in the grant guidelines as well, but indirect costs should be entered as one line item and must be 15% or less of the total project budget. And the contingency should be entered as one line item as well and must be 10% or less of the total direct cost. Your other sources of project funding, that sort of table below the main budget table, this is only if your project has other funding sources in addition to what you're requesting for the Air District. This data does not change the Air District's total funds request. The project summary tab, again, please don't edit that. It will auto-populate. And a couple of tips to avoid errors. Please use the drop downs whenever they are available. And then avoid typing over formulas in cells, only input in the cells that don't have formulas. And the last thing I'll say is, the formulas are there, they should work, but it's always best practice to double check. So, do a quick, open a calculator and do a quick sum of the dollars there, and make sure everything is looking correct. Okay. So that's the overview of the budget and the budget template and example. Again, please look at the example. It gives great highlights of what is a direct cost and indirect cost and how much wording and detail you need to include in there. Okay. So with that, we've gone over the sort of those core documents. Remember the remaining documents, please open them, read them, and double check all of your file names. But I will hand it over to you, Vanessa, to look at the sample timeline. And again, apologies for the technical issues on my screen share, and thank you for quickly resolving that for us too.
Okay. Right before we go into timeline, I'm going to go over the uploading process. Once we have all our application package all together, we've gathered all our files, saved all Word document templates as PDFs, saved the Excel files as is, as Excel files. Double check to make sure you've used all the correct file names, including for any additional documentation you're providing. So for instance, when a template is not provided, use document titles that are easy to understand and that follow the same naming structure. For instance, like if you were submitting something like a building permit for a specific project, it would be geography underscore project number underscore project name underscore building permit. Similarly, for any financial documents you're submitting, if you're submitting one for each the lead and the co-applicant, make sure to include the organization name in the file title. So for instance, I put in, these are just samples that like North Cityville CBO, and then also putting the same financial statements for the partner. And so once you have all of these together in one folder, it's time to upload. So go back to that email that you initially received with that application number. It's also going to have that link right over here. Step 2, please click on the link Local Community Benefits Fund Application Upload. So once I click on that, I'm going to go to this portal that says Local Community Benefits Fund Application. I'm going to click Select Files. And these are all my files. When you're uploading the files, we recommend that you upload the full package all at once because there's no way to see what you've already uploaded. And we want to make sure you don't accidentally miss a file. So I'm going to select all of them, click open. So I can like scroll to make sure all my files are there, put in my name, first and last name, click upload. Might take a little moment. And then after you upload, you should receive this notification, finished uploading. One thing to clarify, even if you receive this message, if the files are not named correctly, the Air District may not receive the files. And that's why we are stressing how important it is to name the files correctly. Also, I want to emphasize that you will not be receiving a final submission email. So once you upload the files and you get to this screen, you're all done. So the application package has been uploaded, and that process is done. So I know that was a lot of information. So I'm going to hand it back to Vanessa to kind of for a little bit of review.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Yes, we've covered a ton of information so far, so thank you for bearing with us. I see some questions coming in. We'll get to a Q&A portion if your questions are not answered throughout this process, but want to take a quick moment to do a quick pulse check. So on your screen, you'll see a quick poll that will come up with a few questions of things that we've already reviewed to this point. So you'll see a total of 4 questions, so you'll need to scroll down. Go ahead and take a moment and answer those questions on your screen, and then we will review each question and the responses. If you're having any trouble at any point submitting that and you don't see it on your screen, please let us know in the chat and we can see if we can resolve. I'm seeing some responses coming in. Thank you. Give it a few minutes. You'll be able to submit by scrolling all the way down and then pressing submit. It will not let you submit unless you scroll and answer all of the questions. Just a few more minutes here, maybe one more minute. Submit your responses. Okay. If you're in the process of submitting your response, go ahead and finish up and press submit, and we'll walk through what we have so far. I'm going to end the poll and walk through each of these together. So I think it should show on your screen the results. So the first question was specifically about naming your application. So Deborah walked us through naming conventions and how important they are for naming your file. So we gave an example. We submitted an application. We are submitting an application for the Benicia Catalyst grant, and the project is on urban greening. Application ID number that we received in our email is 26 LCB15, which this number will always be bolded in your email. There's an example, but go ahead and you have to use the bolded number in your email. That is your unique number. How should you name your application file if this was your situation? The correct answer is Benicia underscore application number. So Benicia underscore 26 LCB15 underscore application summary. So that is how you would name that file before submitting. That is the correct way so that the Air District can receive that file. You should see that correct response on your screen. Number two is, how do you get your application ID number? And most of you were able to get that correct. It is by submitting your application information form, and you'll get that confirmation email, again, bolded both in the subject line and in the body of your email. Number three, where can you find and download application templates? We've referenced the application instructions quite a few times now. You can find all templates in the application instructions form, specifically on page 3. They are all highlighted, or they are all in blue text. That is because they're hyperlinked. So go ahead and click the name, application summary, overall narrative. All of those documents are hyperlinked. So as long as you press them, they will download on your page. And lastly, where can you find the link to submit your completed application files? Again, referencing that application information form, submit it. You'll receive your confirmation email. In your confirmation email, you will have a link. It's also hyperlinked. It is application upload, or it says upload your application or application upload. And then it's hyperlinked. You click it, and that will take you directly to that portal. Highly recommend having all your files complete, named correctly, and then uploading everything together, creating some sort of a checklist for yourself. Amazing. With that being said, we've covered a lot of information. Now that Deborah and Mona have walked you through the application materials, what you'll need to prepare, how you can upload, how you name your files. Now, I want to help you plan. We want to give you some information and help you plan your time between now and the application deadline. So I'm going to share my screen again with the PowerPoint deck. And I'm sharing a sample timeline. So this is a sample timeline for all grants. This is Benicia Catalyst grant, which is the one with the unique deadline, and all other grants. This is an overall timeline meant to help you prepare and plan your time between now and the application deadline. This is, of course, only an example, and it's not meant to be copied exactly. Every organization, every partnership will look different, and you will have your own timeline. This is meant to give you a sort of framework to be able to create your own internal timeline. So as we mentioned earlier and have referenced a few times, your first step will be to submit your application information form. By submitting this form, you'll receive, again, unique ID number, link to upload, everything you'll need. Then we recommend submitting technical assistance requests pretty early on so that you can do your intake form. Let them know what sort of support you anticipate needing, and then you can plan ahead and not have to wait later and be able to plan for that time that they will need to either review your application or provide that support that you'll need. You'll submit any questions that you have about the application or the process. Applications for the Benicia Catalyst grant are due April 10th, and for all other applications, they are due on May 8th, all due at 5 p.m. We've done our best. Our team has been responding to questions as they come in, and there is an FAQ and a Q&A that you should have received in the chat messages that you can reference throughout the application timeline. But all questions are due April 10th and May 8th, depending on the grant. Responses to grant application questions will be posted on April 22nd for the Benicia Catalyst grant and on May 22nd for all other grants. Then you'll review responses to the questions and revise your grant proposal depending on those responses if you had questions. You'll proof final versions against the grant guidelines and the scoring criteria, which Deborah mentioned throughout her portion. Then you'll finalize your response and your budget. Double check that your files are named correctly so that the Air District can receive those files. Throughout this whole timeline, you'll be drafting your application, compiling all the materials that you need, and deadlines. Benicia Catalyst grant is due on May 1st at 5 p.m. and all other grant applications for Benicia and surrounding communities and Richmond and surrounding communities are due May 29th at 5 p.m. Highly suggest submitting everything ahead. Now I'm going to switch screen share one more time. I think this will be the last time that I'll make you look at something different, but I'm going to provide a sample calendar timeline. Again, this is not meant to be replicated exactly or copied exactly. This is just to help you think through things that might not be included in the guidelines and other things to think about that happen internally with organizations and review process, etc. And I'll share my screen and you'll see a few color-coded deadlines. So when looking at this, we will start in March, which right now you're at the Tips and Tricks webinar today, Tuesday, April 10th. Then looking at this week, if we were looking at submitting an application, we'd review guidelines, confirm eligibility, do internal brainstorm with the team, confirm lead applicants and partners. And then there's an in-person networking event happening on this is specifically for Benicia Catalyst. So thinking about Benicia Catalyst grant, there is an in-person networking event for Benicia on Thursday, March 19th that I would attend to be able to network, confirm my partners, co-applicants. Then I'd submit my application information form to receive everything we've already mentioned, unique ID and link to upload. You'll be working on outlining your application, identifying all application files, and then a few weeks to draft your application. Here I've noted and called out to myself that I might request technical assistance pretty early, looking at April 2nd, so that I can connect with the team. They respond in about 24 to 48 hours to receive technical assistance from your initial contact, and then you'll connect with them and arrange the technical assistance request that you have. Here I'm also calling out that I might need leadership review, so making sure that leadership review might be happening. In this case, maybe I'm out of office and they might not need anything from me, so planning ahead so that leadership can review that while I'm out of office. When I come back, reviewing and implementing that feedback. In red, again, some deadlines to think about on the calendar. Benicia Catalyst questions are due. And then continue drafting application. If I want the technical assistance team to review my application against the score sheet, I might plan for about a week and a half, about a week. I've outlined about a week here for them to review against the score sheet, provide feedback, so that then I have enough time, about a week, to implement that feedback, do final edits to my application, and submit my application. Here, although the application is due on May 1st, I have set a internal deadline of April 29th to give myself enough time to resolve any issues and to make sure I have enough time and I'm not submitting last minute. Again, these are some things to think about. Your internal process may look different. You might have additional review needed. This is just a sample of what it could look like and some things to think about when you are planning your time between now and the application deadline. This is also, again, for the Benicia Catalyst grant. This is why the deadline is May 1st. But if you are submitting for any other application for either Benicia or Richmond and surrounding communities, you might have additional time since it won't be due until May 29th, which is down here. Okay. I'm going to go back to screen sharing the deck, and we have just a few more things to walk through before we go into Q&A. When we kicked off the webinar, Mona mentioned that there have been past events that you can reference if you're looking for more information about eligibility, more background information, and more details specific to the grant that you are applying for. We recommend reviewing the deck and or recording of the informational session that applies to the grant that you are applying to. The Benicia informational session happened on February 18th at 6 p.m. The deck and recording are live in the Community Investments Office website, but are also linked on this PowerPoint presentation and should also go in the chat, and you'll have access to that. For the Richmond informational session, that happened on February 19th. Deck and recording, the links are also available here. And then just last week, there was a grant development webinar, and there is a deck and recording available that will go in more detail on measurable outcomes and other information that might be helpful when drafting your application. Some important dates that are upcoming. You've already heard me say it a ton of times, but I'll just walk through them just a few more times. Final date to submit questions, April 10th for Benicia Catalyst grant, May 8th for all other grants. Responses to all questions will be posted on April 22nd for the Benicia Catalyst grant and May 22nd for all other grants. Technical assistance response time from your initial intake form. They take about 24 to 48 hours to respond, so plan ahead. The Catalyst grant deadline for Benicia and surrounding communities, May 1st at 5 p.m. All other grant deadlines are May 29th at 5 p.m. as well, so plan ahead. Now, upcoming opportunities. There are 2 in-person networking sessions, one for Benicia and surrounding communities and one for Richmond and surrounding communities. Those will take place next week. The goal is to help you network and create partnerships and meet other organizations and entities that will be applying to this. So you can RSVP by visiting the link that is on screen, or it's also linked in the chat so that you can RSVP. The Benicia one is happening on March 19th at 9:45, and the Richmond one will take place on March 16th at 9:45. There will be a short presentation, an overview of the grant application that will happen at the beginning of those in-person sessions as well. So just a little refresher. Then finally, some resources and technical assistance that's available. We've mentioned technical assistance that is available through the Environmental Protection Network, and they're able to support with grant guideline navigation, eligibility navigation and support, application and review support. You can request this technical assistance by submitting a technical assistance intake form. The QR code, you can scan it, and the link is also in the chat. If you'd like to request technical assistance, you will scan or visit the website, fill out the intake form, select California as your state, choose Bay Area Air District Community Benefits Fund, complete the short intake form. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. And then EPN, Environmental Protection Network, will follow up within 24 to 48 hours for your request. We've mentioned a few links throughout the presentation today. All of the links are compiled in this slide: grant guidelines, Community Investments Office website, application instructions, and others. They're all included here, but as I walked you through it in the very beginning, you can go directly to the Community Investments Office website and access all links that will be for your application process. Finally, we do have some writing tools that are available for proofreading tools. These tools can be really helpful to check for grammar, spelling, and overall clarity before you submit. These tools are on screen. They can help your application process. And I also want to call out that some applicants may choose to use AI writing tools to help organize their ideas, draft sections, or edit their writing. We understand that these tools can help with efficiency and just getting started and getting everything on a page. However, AI tools uh, can have a mind of its own sometimes, so we strongly recommend doing a thorough review of anything that was generated through AI or anything that you've used AI to write before submitting your application. We want to make sure that the information is accurate before submitting, it reflects your organization correctly, and just truly represents the organization, the project that you are proposing. Again, you'll receive a copy of all materials that we've discussed today. So the deck will be shared and recording of today's session will be shared with you as well so that you can reference all of this. And with that, I will send it back to Mona to cover Q&A.
Okay, thank you. Lots of information. Thanks so much, Vanessa and team. So we're going to transition to Q&A here. We're going to do things a little bit differently because we don't have a whole lot of time. So we'll start with questions that are really relevant to the topics we discussed today. And then with time left, we'll go over questions about eligibility and other things. I should also say that we're doing our best to answer questions live, but we will provide written responses to your questions in that Q&A posted document in the next week or so. So let's get started. We've responded to some questions. I want to, again, start with the ones that maybe are more relevant to this application tips and tricks webinar. So the first one is, does geography in the naming convention refer to Richmond and surrounding communities, or Benicia and surrounding communities, or the specific town and or region the project intends to serve? I believe, and Emmy, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's actually, you could just put Benicia for Benicia and surrounding communities, underscore your unique ID, and then follow the project name. And same thing for Richmond. So I got a thumbs up from Emmy there. So to clarify, you don't need to put the specific town or area your project is or your application is focusing on. And you also don't need to write and surrounding communities for either. It'll just be Richmond underscore or Benicia underscore. Okay. I'm going to go down to another question here from Anonymous. Will there be an email confirmation once all materials have been submitted? There is not an automatic email confirmation once you submit your materials. So the email that Vanessa and Deborah were showing earlier, you do get that email once you submit your application intake form or your application form to get your unique ID, and that's the only email that you will receive. So we really highly recommend having all of your materials ready, double checking your file name, making sure you're comfortable with what you're going to upload, and uploading everything all at once. Is there a confirmation on screen? Can someone remind me when those files are uploaded that you can see the files were uploaded? It gives you that confirmation on the portal itself. There goes AI having a mind of its own. We're celebrating getting to the end of this webinar, kidding. But you will not get an email. You will not get an email there. This one I might tap you into, Deborah. This one says, from Carrie, including .pdf or not. Unclear on when to include .pdf.
Yeah, so all Word document templates provided should be saved as PDFs, and all Excel files provided should be saved as Excels.
Okay. And I think to help clarify, in the file naming, you typically don't need to write .pdf. Once you save it as a PDF, that automatically does it for you. So just to double check, once you've named your file, you've saved it as a PDF, it should say what the file name should be .pdf once. If it says .pdf twice, it was maybe typed in and needs to be edited. That's helpful. Okay. I'm going to go on to the next question here. May I, as a contracted grant administrator for the applicant, prepare and complete the application? Is there a third-party authorization form required, or is a board resolution required for the application? I would highly recommend opening all the files and reading through them and making sure that you have the information and the organization in which you're submitting on behalf of is comfortable allowing you to provide that. There's not a required third-party authorization form, but there is an agreement to terms document that we do believe the lead applicant should look at and agree to, although it's not required that you sign that form. You have to kind of sort of check the boxes and fill it out. Emmy, is there any additional context you want to add to this one?
No, that's right. And I can answer the second question here on around is a board resolution required for the application? That really depends on your own status as a lead or co-applicant. If you are subject to an entity that does require a board resolution, what we ask is that that board resolution be finalized by the time the grant agreement is executed. So not by the time of grant application, but it is should you be awarded a grant and then you're entering into contract negotiations with the Air District, by the time of grant agreement execution, we would ask if you yourself require any board or council resolution that you obtain that by that time.
Okay, thank you. We've got one more question that's really focused on this, then we can get to the other questions with the time we have left. Another one is if you find an error in an uploaded file, can you overwrite the file by uploading again? This is a great question. Couple of things I want to share. Please keep that you can upload a file again. We're going to say please keep that file name the same. On the Air District side, they'll be able to see if it's been uploaded again. But what we highly recommend is in the file that you've corrected or that you're saying is final, please write like in large font and red font and something on the top of that document that says this is the correct file. Please disregard the other ones with the same file name. And we just say that so that you can, do your part to be extra clear and make sure that what you want evaluated is evaluated. Additionally, that anything you upload still needs to be uploaded before the deadline. So once the deadline has hit, you cannot upload files into the portal. And if they are uploaded and corrected, they will not be reviewed. Okay. How can we tell if we have the most recent application guidelines? Please go to the Community Investments Office website. That website, the links are up to date there, and download all of your files from that website. Okay. All right. So there are two questions in the Q&A box. I'll also say at this point, feel free to raise your hand if we have additional questions. If you have questions you want to ask live, we'll give you the opportunity to unmute. So the first question that was there, and I'm sorry, my Zoom crashed, so I'm reading from a message from the team. It was, how do you distinguish between opportunity grants with two main components versus two projects that require separate narratives, budgets, etc.? So I'll let Emmy, if you want to start with that, and then I could also maybe tap in if needed.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for this question. This question, I would really look to your own discretion and understanding of what are you considering different projects versus the same project with main components. One way to look at this that often people use, but you don't have to, is there a different kind of lead or set of lead entities who are leading a project? If there are different entities leading very unique portions of a project, you can kind of ask yourself, okay, is this still one project under one umbrella, or are these really two separate projects that are kind of operating on parallel tracks, but are not deeply coordinated and aligned? Yeah, it's hard to know. There's no hard and fast rule here. It is really asking yourself, is this one project with multiple components where they're intertwined, the project activities are aligned, the budget is aligned, and there's real kind of coordination and alignment between the partners who are carrying out activities? Or does it really feel like two separate projects where they're both trying to benefit community, but they have different outcomes attached, and then subsequently different kind of work plan and budget? So it's hard to say, it's hard to give a hard and fast answer, but that's how I might approach it.
Yeah, thank you, Emmy. And a reminder that as a lead applicant, you could submit one application per grant type. So if you are a lead applicant, you're sort of toying between different projects. There's no limit to the number of co-applicants you can have, or you could participate as a lead applicant on one application and a co as another. But as a lead applicant, you could submit only up to one seed, catalyst, or opportunity grant. Okay. Next, so the next question we have from Sharon, since permit removals, et cetera, are normally pursued are normally not pursued, until a project is build ready. I'm confused why these docs are needed for the grant application. You assume we have the funding for the project already, rather than understanding the reason why we are applying for this grant is to acquire total funding in order to proceed. Please explain.
Sure. Permit approvals are not required at the time of application submission. What we will ask is for you to identify what permits or approvals will be required and to essentially narrativize, give us a description of where you are in the status of acquiring those approvals. And then what will be required is demonstration that permits or approvals can be obtained within the grant term should grant funding be awarded. So hope that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. The next question from Teresa, are we actually answering each section of the project narrative under the question on the page? Believe that answer is yes. I'm seeing nods from the team. So yes, under the section where let the question be there on the page. Keep it there. Please don't delete it, and write your response underneath that question. Okay. I'm not seeing any other hands raised or additional questions. Was there, we'll give it, a couple more minutes if you all want to raise your hand, if you have a question you want to ask live or an additional question. A couple reminders, of course, there are the in-person sessions coming up next week. So if you would like to attend those, please register. Walk-ins are welcome. Registrations help us plan for refreshments. In addition to that, get familiarized with that Air District Community Investments website. It's really helpful to, read through it, see what resources are there, and then download those application instructions and grant guidelines. If you have questions, submit them as you have them. We're responding, to the best of our ability as soon as we can. And there is a deadline for questions. If questions come in after the deadline, we'll do our best to respond. But really, if you need that guaranteed answer, please respond before the deadline. And then technical assistance is something to plan for. Vanessa had mentioned a couple times that they take 24 to 48 hours to respond from the Environmental Protection Network. That respond will usually include some kind of intake discussion where you'll have to plan out the technical assistance you're actually looking for. So plan ahead. Things like review of the application might take about a week if it's early, but as you get closer to the deadline, they may need more time. So just keep those things in mind. The deadline for questions, Vanessa, I see it in the chat. Do
Yes.
you have that handy?
Yeah. Final day to submit questions for the Benicia Catalyst grant is April 10th. And for all other applications, it's May 8th. Then responses will be posted on April 22nd for Benicia Catalyst grant, May 22nd for all other grants. And I'll also post those in the chat.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions. So with that, we will, as soon as the recording is ready and available, it'll be on the Air District's website, along with the slide deck from this webinar and other webinars and events to support this process. Thank you all for your time this afternoon. We hope that you found this information, this session helpful, and best of luck with your grant applications. Thank you, everyone.